Hello, welcome to another tea journey adventure review. I'm Ashish and joined by Soham, and today we are going to be drinking a 2006 Sheng Puerh. So, how's it going, Soham?
It's going well. It's going well.
Cool. So, what do we know about this tea?
Well, it is a special blended tea from 2006 from Changtai Tea Factory, which is one of my favorite factories. Um, they're most known for like their earlier teas, like late in the late 90s. They became famous through some of their iwu cakes that they put out, and you know a lot of people are aware of like their brown label, like 2004 brown label, blue label teas, and then they put out some teas like in 1999 and 2000 that became famous and still are today and like are really valuable. But I also really like their um, 2006 was a really good year for them in my opinion. I've had several teas from them uh, from 2006 that I'm really impressed with. This is predominantly Nannuo, ancient tree material, some plantation material as well. It was blended by a famous tea blender, and this was released for Taipei Tea Culture Expo. And it's Malaysian stored. I was really attracted to the fact that it's Malaysian stored. It's from one of my favorite tea factories, and I really like the coloration of the leaf. There seems to be a fair amount of nice buds and kind of lighter material,
Yep.
um, like almost golden. And the cake has a nice kind of looser to medium compression, and is just has a really nice coloration, a lighter golden kind of hue, uh, kind of shimmery even.
Yeah, some of the buds have like that kind of like fuzz on it that
Yeah.
when you move in the light, it shimmers.
Mm-hmm.
So how much leaf are you using?
I will probably this pot I think is 110 milliliters. I'm probably gonna use close to probably 5 to 6 grams. Kind of just gonna. Um, I'm not. I guess I could get my scale and weigh it out, but
Yeah, I'm not,
I kind of eyeball it. It'll probably open up a little bit more than you would expect. Not unlike
yeah.
the other 2016 that we got.
And for me personally, I'm using a little bit less leaf just because I'm always kind of like trigger shy about Sheng Puerhs get me, just because I don't drink them too often.
Yeah,
But
I think it's safe to go lighter with this one at first. What's the dry out of the bag? I'm getting a really sweet smell out of the bag.
yeah, it definitely rounds out just getting steamed a little bit from heating up the pot, not even putting water on the leaves yet. It's
Mm-hmm.
it smells like dry autumn leaves to me, like just those oak leaves that get dried out, and you like smell a handful of autumn leaves is what I'm getting.
Mm. I'm getting like a sweet clay. It's a similar nostalgic feeling to the other 2016 that we got. The aroma, it reminds me of like clay, like
Mhm.
playing with clay. I try to not say Play-Doh, but it's like the sweet natural clay smell. It's really pleasant.
Yep. Right.
Rinsing the leaves now.
Whoa.
Wow.
Getting some camphor. Definitely fiery energy, feels like.
Yeah, I'm definitely getting the camphor. But I'm definitely getting that warm, still that warm clay smell, but there's a sweetness and a softness.
Yeah, I'm getting the sweetness too. Yeah.
It has a very pleasant aroma, and it's a unique aroma.
Yep. It looks like it's mostly smaller leaf material.
Yeah, it does appear to be a more small to medium leaf grade.
Now, when you say ancient tree, what is, I know it's kind of like different sources will say different things, but what's the range that we're talking about in age of tree when
Ancient
we're
tree
saying
is
ancient?
200 plus years.
Okay.
So, and I know I think there's some Mengsong tea in here as leaf material as well, ancient tree. I think a blend of 3 areas, and then there's a little bit of plantation, Nannuo plantation along with ancient tree. So,
Interesting.
yeah. Mm.
It's very bright. It's like the first word that comes to mind.
The aroma, the taste and the aroma are definitely very close. It's not such a far departure from what I'm smelling. I call this like when a tea is at the middle-aged puerh tea is like in this stage. To me, it's a golden era. It's definitely in the middle, and seems to me that the edges are totally rounded off.
Yep. Yeah, that was something I noticed. It's surprisingly round, although it is still the first steeping. So if there are edges, they won't come out until.
Yeah, we'll see. Mm.
But so far, it's really nice, pleasant.
The storage is very clean. It has the perfect like kind of I'd say it's more in the library and book category of the storage. The aged character is kind of more in that. A library that I want to hang out in for a while, and
Yeah.
they have some beautiful, well preserved old books.
Speaking of books,
I realized that I must plug in my charger.
For your computer?
Yeah, sorry, I had to break the fourth wall. I don't know if that's technically breaking the fourth wall, but
No, because you haven't acknowledged the audience. But
okay.
you have acknowledged that you're alive and you're not trapped in a set.
Oh, okay, yeah. I've acknowledged that I'm free.
If you look at the camera and talk to somebody, that's breaking the fourth wall.
Okay.
Just in case you ever want to do it, that's what.
Viewer. Okay, cool. I'm glad that we clarified that. Maybe this.
But I was gonna say, speaking of books, I just got this book, which I think you might be interested in.
Quadrivium. I feel like I've seen that.
The Four Classical Literal Arts of Number, Geometry, Music, and Cosmology.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm ever going to read it, but I thought it was cool. Like, I want to know the things, basically, but anyway, there'll be an understanding of how it relates as we get further into this tea.
Mm. This has like a baked quality, like a pie, some kind of pastry.
Yeah, like apple strudel.
Mm-hmm. This is honestly the aroma of this tea is very, very pleasant. It is very. They definitely put some work into making sure that this is a pleasurable experience. Even just the aroma, it has this like really just inviting, soft, sweet, warm. I feel like I could just smell this tea. If I had this available as an incense in my house.
Energetically, I feel it already starting to have an influence, especially like in the eyes and kind of the head area. Flavor-wise, it's a little bit of edge has come, not in like a bad way, but as opposed to the first steeping for me, it's starting to kind of come to life a little bit.
It definitely has a punch to it. That was the first thing I thought. Is it's punchy because it's got a back end to it that. But for me, I'm getting it more as a tingle, just a slight tingle, not as. It's not sharp. It just it's a presence that's there, and I acknowledge.
Right. Yeah.
Not taking the forefront at all. It's just it's there.
Yep. And I'm getting the Hui Gong on it.
Yeah.
On the tongue.
Yeah, I feel if I were to refer to it, if I were to come up with a term that I would use again, something like there's some passion in there. There's some fervor.
Steeping number 3.
The leaf is, it does feel like more small to medium grade. There is some stems, and the leaves are fairly intact.
Yes, fairly.
You could see that the aging has made it to where there is some breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
The other day here in northern Washington, there was a very distinct kind of foreshadowing of autumn.
Mm-hmm.
There's this cooler breeze in the air, just the light was a little bit different. And this tea, I feel like this is an autumn worship kind of tea. Even just the
Yeah.
way it looks like wet
Well, I
fall.
referenced that in the smell too that I was getting. Autumn leaves.
Mm. These teas sometimes are hard to pinpoint. There's
Yeah.
it feels like there's a cohesive quality. I mean, it is a blend. I feel like it's a really well done blend. It is just it's a good tea, and I
I
acknowledge
think
that that is good.
like part of it is it's just like kind of like what you want to do in autumn anyways, like sit in an Adirondack chair out on your porch and sip on some tea basically. It's like its presence is more conducive to just like sinking into a chair or something, you know, like
Yeah, couldn't agree more with that. More and more, I feel like in my earlier relationship with tea, I kind of was drawn to it for like I was into kind of more wily teas, and uh, I want to feel energized and like, oh yeah, like because I started off drinking mate, and some of those younger Shengs really kind of pressed the similar buttons. But as I gotten more into tea over the years, I really appreciate the balancing quality of tea, and I feel like this tea has that quality, and it still has, there's definitely a good amount of qi that is
yeah.
some rising qi. I feel some definite some radiating.
Mhm.
Like I feel it coming out and around me, but it's very conducive. I feel I could totally just sit and just like kind of be content to just
Yeah, for sure. It's
almost
like
like, yeah, just not talk and just be like,
yeah, I get that too. I think, I mean, it's good now. I feel like this tea is going to continue to age really well.
oh yeah,
Like in 15 years, you know, it's going to be an amazing tea. Just
if
because
I
it's already clearly on the path of that evolution, that aging process where it's like, it's done well so far. It's been had a really good journey so far.
it's on the path to greatness.
Yeah. That's actually a good name.
Path to greatness, yeah. Yeah.
Um,
This tea is easy to name. Like I've already had like 4 or 5 names, and I feel like this is definitely a good ideas tea, because what I've
because
noticed.
it doesn't.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm just gonna say that what I've noticed in my journey of what is conducive towards inspiration and creativity is I personally need to feel relaxed enough to allow that.
Mm.
But that's me personally. I'm not going to speak for all creativity and all humanity, but there is something that kind of a relaxation to ease into the timelessness necessary to allow.
Right.
And this tea is really helping me do that.
Yeah, it makes me personifying it makes me think of like, again, sitting on the porch with an older being. You know, like it's not like having a toddler around and just like running around, and it's great to be in their presence, but you constantly have to be on it. You know, and that's the energy. Like the energy of this is just like someone who's peaceful and quiet sitting with you. And that's why I think like it's almost like when something is so clearly defined in its presence, like this is what it does, this is what it's about. It's actually contradictory, harder to name that because it's so clear what it is. But when there's a spaciousness, I think the creativity comes from that spaciousness because it allows us to drop into a deep, to beyond the busy aspect of our mind into like a deeper level of our mind that is more free from constraints and patterns and things like that. So it spurs inspiration just naturally. So the names that come up aren't necessarily about the the tea because the presence, because the presence will, the reason why it's inspiring is because it denies being labeled. Not denies, but
Yeah,
it itself is not to be labeled. You know, it's like,
yeah. It's funny that you say that because when I worked at Flywake in Portland, we had a 2006 Changtai raw puer there that we called nameless because it did a
yeah.
very similar thing to this. I would call this nothingness.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is more of like a nothingness where, especially from that awareness of nothing is like this spacious, it's very similar to everything,
Mm-hmm.
but nothing, it just feels like you could just be. It's
Right.
it like that really lovely emptiness of like, wow, that relaxation I feel of not.
Yeah, but there is a directionality to it, I feel, because, you know, there's like peacefulness, stillness, nothingness. But this almost like the energy that comes with a raw Sheng Puerh that has good Qi, it has a directionality to it. But I feel like this one is inwardly directed. So
Yes.
like it's not still with just like at where you're at. It's still with the encouragement to go within, uh, with some velocity, with some thrust to it, which is an interesting sensation because it's like I feel the energy of this tea like it could just like, you know, go shoot out, you know, like you could harness it and like do something external, but it seems to have a predisposition within how it's expressing with me to like, it almost feels like it has the strength of energy where you close your eyes it could be distracting, but it's not. It's like, oh wow, it's actually super supportive in just like shooting through some blockages to be meditative, which is interesting. I mean, um,
Yeah,
yeah.
there is a edge walking quality.
Hmm. But it kind of goes without saying, but we'll say it. You know, with a tea like this and energy of what we're talking about, what goes along with that is naturally there's relaxation of the musculature. You know, that happens. Um, like specifically, I noticed like tension not being present in the hands. You know, just like a more uh, just
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's this like gentle breeze moving through the leaves right just out here, and I feel like I could just sit and listen to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have a feeling that this would be really great. Drink this tea, put on some headphones and listen to a good album, or you know, during your tea session, having a nice album playing. I feel like I generally like that with tea. I like to,
Or listen to nature sounds. I mean,
yeah,
as long as the album is not too, like, I feel like a type of album. Some types I feel would be distracting. If the album itself has too much direction to it, it
yeah,
could pull away from and distract from some of the qualities that are great about this tea. Like the album would have to be one that's like more nebulous
yeah,
and not so linear.
yeah.
I don't know. That music is so personal. That's just my what I'm feeling about it.
Well, what immediately came to mind was it's kind of my go-to album when I want to listen to something, but I don't necessarily want to listen to songs.
Right.
Uh, but like uh, Onugama is basically, it's kind of more of a shamanic journeying music, but it just has a steady rhythm, and the tracks kind of flow into each other, and you can listen to it over. You can just have the album on repeat, and you wouldn't necessarily know when it begins and ends. And many people have used it for tea ceremony, and but I think
Yeah.
it's, I'm trying to remember the name of the album, but Onugama, Shamanic Dream.
That's the
Shamanic,
name of the album.
yeah,
It's actually a good name for the tea too.
Shamanic Dream. Yeah, there's Shamanic Dream and Shamanic Dream 2. Um, both are great. They're so great, in fact, that I bought them
Mm-hmm.
so I could just play it at any time.
Or Shamanic Dream. This time it's personal. Shamanic Dream 3. This time it's personal.
So yeah, there's,
But I'm still getting that brightness, that first
yeah,
word that came to me when I took that first sip. I'm still getting that brightness. There's a bright
mhm.
quality to it. You know, bright in the eyes, in the energy. It's very, yeah.
Yeah, it has a, it there's that note in a lot of Chinese tea that a lot of times people say apricot, and there's a quality to this tea. It's kind of like that, but
Yeah.
it's that brightness. But I wouldn't say it's that one. And
You
it's
know,
not.
it's interesting. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No. That's good. You're good.
It's interesting, like, because a lot of times with Sheng Puerh, like, the palette of the tea, the flavors are kind of the thing that becomes the focus of the conversation. Like, oh, there's this thing coming through and that thing coming through, and now this steeping, this is coming more to the forefront because it can be so dynamic. But with this one, it's been kind of in the background. Like, it's not.
Yeah.
I mean, it's there, but it's more about it's calling attention more to the subtle things, the energy of the tea, than to the profile, the mouth, the flavors and everything. Even though they're there, it's just like, you know.
Yeah, I feel this tea. I think this is speaks to our offering in general. Is that sourcing really good teas but teas that still a beginner or someone that hasn't drank a lot of Chinese tea would drink and be like, wow, this is what's this? And there's a curiosity, because I know, at least for me, I didn't really know much about Liu Bao until at least I already like was into tea and I was researching and all this stuff. And that's not everybody's experience. Not everybody's like me, where I'm just like, I just dive into this research
Right.
world, where I'm just like on the search, like the detective. But this is a kind of tea that say if you're new to tea and you've had this tea, this might not be a tea that you would have earlier on in a journey with tea, or that it would necessarily naturally come your way. If it did, hats off to you, like, but this tea has, I think, like a lot of our teas, it's very, very much a tea. This is Chinese tea. Like the last steeping especially, I was like, oh, this is Chinese tea. This is indicative of Chinese tea in terms of culture, and it's interesting because it's not just, I don't want to say Chinese tea only. I mean, obviously this was made for a Taiwanese expo, tea
Right.
culture expo. And it's interesting because I do feel how this tea speaks to a cultural experience. Like,
Yeah.
even just the aroma and the feeling of drinking it, I feel that I am having this is what tea does. Like this, like we were talking about sitting and just like enjoying, like
Right.
enjoying presence, just like the nature sounds, or, this would be great if you had this with some, agarwood incense, or you put on a nice like Erhu album or something, like it's just like, Li Shanting or something. This is totally, and even the aroma I feel like has that, it smells like where it's from, like, and maybe that's why some of the words that I'm trying to use to describe like what it tastes and smells like, I personally have not been to China yet, or Taiwan.
Yep.
I very much want to.
Yep. I would say like this tea is just like a step beyond beginner tea. Like I wouldn't necessarily like, I don't know why, but because I feel like you could mess it up.
Oh yeah, I guess
It could be really strong.
it would be ideal if someone served this to a beginner,
Yeah.
someone who's maybe not a beginner.
With
served,
that said, though,
yeah.
with that said, I do think if you're gonna like start practicing with a sheng, this wouldn't be a bad choice because it's not gonna be super harsh
No.
if you mess it up. But you have to recognize, I think you would want to have an adventurous spirit if it was going to be like, oh, like I've never drank sheng before and I just started brewing tea and I'm going to get this tea.
Mm.
Like know that it's going to, it's a journey and you'd want to get at least 60 grams so that, because so you can practice or something.
Yeah.
But it's hard. I mean, I know for me, I'm like, I've been drinking tea for 5 years, Chinese tea, but sheng is relatively new for me. And I don't think that there's no replacement experientially from being served a tea in the right way so you can lock in, okay, there's no like ever fixed box about what tea should be, but you kind of get a sense from being served a tea. Okay, it's kind of like in the strike zone of baseball,
Yeah.
it always takes an umpire and kind of that experience of seeing where it is in relation to the edges. But,
Yeah.
it definitely is valuable to be served tea as part of the learning experience from someone who, it's like passing along of the lineage, basically, you know.
Well, yeah, that's why for so long, the teachings were, you know, passed down through word, through oral tradition. Like with Chinese tea, it's like part of that is it's the experience. You're experiencing the vibration literally, and that's why. I mean that's how I learned. I observed my teachers serving tea, and not just that, but like since I worked in tea houses, I observed how they interacted with the people in a service mindset as well. So it was kind of like it was kind of that was another layer of it, is seeing how they would interact, like how they would take the order and how they would help the person get the right tea for them, you know, and
Yeah,
because
that's a whole other skill set.
it's a whole other thing, because there are these things that happen that the mind is very, you know, we were both participating in a retreat this past weekend, and they were talking about the unstable quality of the mind.
Right.
And it's like, so when someone is making a selection, like based on, say, they're looking at a menu, most of the time there's there's an attraction to what they would like.
Mm-hmm.
But then the server or the chajin or the tea master or the tea server, there's a spectrum, right? Can read between the lines and be able to even just make the selection that is going to be most beneficial. And it's a tricky thing. It's a whole other thing. But I feel like for you studying with Poe, it's such a blessing, because there's a curation, there's the having the access to the teas, and then being able to serve them, having a personal relationship with the teas, and just having all the things necessary to be able to really give that experience, provide you with the experience that is really going to help you assimilate the experience as easily as possible, just from like the actual space itself is conducive to drinking tea. His overall energy is conducive. So there's a lot of layers to that, and it can be really hard to just buy tea and then get the experience. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the thing, though. I mean, that's a beautiful thing about tea, is know that it is always a journey, just like any practice. There's no way on day one there's going to be the depth of relationship with tea as we have with it now, or even beyond where someone like Poe or Kevin at Fly Awake has with tea now. There's no substitute. You can't read in a book and get there. That's why one of the valuable aspects is an experiential learning process, which not only applies to the satiation and the taste and everything, but it has spiritual, personal navigation through the world, energetic implications and lessons. So needless to say, I think, kind of coming back to this tea specifically, like there's something about this tea, like, we may not have been talking directly about this tea for the last 15 minutes, but like we've said before in videos, like what we were talking about was definitely inspired by the energy of this tea.
Yes.
So kind of, again, it's not a beginner tea, because we're not saying, okay, this is exactly what this tea is. It's a step above beginner, because you're asked to read between the lines a little bit, feel into the energy of what we've been talking about. And if that speaks to you, then that's the indication of if this tea is right. It's not about getting a surface level of bullet points that check off, oh, I'm looking for this and this and this in the tea. If you feel that this experience has spoken to you, maybe not even at a level of understanding, then I think that that's part of the recognition, the inner recognition that there's something in this tea for you.
Mm. I mean, how do I follow up that? I mean, what steeping are you on?
I have no idea. I think I'm probably around 7 or 8, or maybe even 9.
Yeah, I feel probably 8 or 9. What I've noticed with this tea is about around steeping 5, I just started increasing the time more.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Just doing longer steepings and just seeing
Mm-hmm.
what that's like. And I will say, especially once you get past the hurdle that most of these teas have,
Like 3 or 2 through 4, something like that.
um, then it becomes a lot easier to just allow. You can just allow for the time. But I do notice that this tea, you know, I was recently I've been looking more at words, like just more on an etymological level, phrases that we use and stuff. And so one of them was pay attention. We're paying
right.
attention, as opposed to awareness, just being aware of something. When we pay attention to something, we are literally
right, or spending time.
Yeah. There's so many words in our vocabulary that are based on transactions, like
right.
Reckoning. I was looking, like reckoning is literally kind of, or, accountability,
Take ownership.
Yeah. Take ownership. Yeah, it's so interesting. But with this tea, if you were to pay attention to something, I feel like it would be worth it to pay attention with this tea. Or I'm just really, because if I'm honest with myself, every tea session that I have, I mean, when you're doing it every day, when I'm doing it every day, there might be some sessions where I'm kind of just like
Yeah.
Fairly casual. But this tea, it's like it's just calling me in to just really, it's like talking.
Now, one thing that we haven't necessarily talked about is, which I know is a factor, but the alchemy of two, the fact that when we're doing these things, we're drinking the tea together. Like, I know my experience, if I was drinking this on my own, even if I was having the same presence and attention, it wouldn't necessarily speak in the same way that it does when it's you and I. It wouldn't say the same thing.
Yeah, recently I've been drinking more tea by myself because, Melissa's been drinking less tea just with the motherhood and such. And there is something really magical about sharing tea. Almost as if it's what's supposed to happen. And, with us, it's like tea really brought us together because, I mean, several things did, but I'd say tea is one of the main. There's something about tea, what it does for us, and helps our personalities meet in a way where it's like, oh wow, I want to drink tea with the sheesh. Like, let's do that. Like, let's. Oh wait, can we just make it to where we can make it our job to do that in a way, or like make it our livelihood to do that? Can we, because we do this
You do it
every
anyway.
day kind of, so can we figure out a way to like just um so yeah, I don't know
There's something about it because it's not like it would have happened that we would spend so much time together if it was like, hey, you want to jump on Zoom and talk, you know?
yeah. And I you know me, and anyone that knows me, I like to talk, I like to explore a conversation, but tea just makes it so much more fun to do that, because you have it's more than just like I'm engaged in some kind of activity.
Right.
uh,
It's kind of like energetic categories or some game like that where you're like hanging out with friends, right? And it's cool. You want to hang out, but like the game gives directionality to it. It's like, okay, pretend to be this, or here's a situation. What do you do? So I feel like when you drink a tea, it's like, okay, we're hanging out, and there's an energetic prompt. It's like, okay, work with this now. This is what's being brought to the table. So go and scene, start and see what happens.
yeah, the improvisational,
Mm-hmm.
just how it really informs the energy, or is conducive to things happening. You
Right.
saw that at the tea house all the time. It's you could easily forget that the tea is the main being,
Right. Right.
but tea creates a space for so much to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yep. And that's what it's all about. So yeah, I mean, I think we've said enough about this, or experienced enough about this tea. So I feel that we can conclude. How do you feel?
yeah. I guess one more thing I'd say just to wrap it up about this tea particularly is I'm 10 plus steepings in, I feel.
Yeah.
And it's great.
Yeah.
It's now, there's like more brightness, more sweetness. It just keeps unfolding in a way that's just
Yep.
it's like, well, I can't remember the last tea we had, but we were like, let's come back later because this is just going to keep opening up. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of like one of those teas where you don't really want the session to end so much.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well, with that said, we're gonna end the session.
we're good. Okay, bye. See you later.
Yeah. So thanks for watching, and we will see you next time with another tea.